Sullivan's enhanced mind orchestrated the impossible, as the human reinforcements arrived exactly where he had predicted they would be needed. The destroyer USS Valiant dropped out of hyperspace directly behind the hegemony formation, while the cruiser USS Liberty appeared on their flank. Captain Ben Rodriguez, commanding the Valiant, and Captain Michelle Torres on the Liberty, had never seen tactical instructions as precise as the ones Sullivan had sent them. "This is Valiant to Nightingale." Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. "Commander Sullivan, your tactical data is unlike anything we have studied at the Academy. How do you want us to coordinate this attack?" Sullivan could see the entire three-dimensional battlefield in his mind with perfect clarity. Every ship's position, speed, and weapon capability formed a complex equation that his enhanced brain solved instantly. "Valiant, move to coordinates 77 Mark IV and target the flagship's port shield generators," Sullivan replied. "Liberty, position yourself at 23 Mark VIII and prepare to fire on the second cruiser's engine systems. Wait for my signal and fire." Simultaneously, both captains acknowledged the orders, even though they seemed to require impossible timing and precision. Admiral Vexhai watched the human ships move into position with growing concern. Their coordination was perfect, as if they were controlled by a single tactical mind. His weapons officers reported that the humans were positioning themselves to exploit weaknesses in hegemony ship design that most species did not even know existed. This was not normal human tactical thinking. Lieutenant Amy Price was monitoring the Nightingale's improvised weapon systems from engineering when Sullivan contacted her again. "Amy, I need you to modify the medical transporters for a special purpose," Sullivan said. "Can you reconfigure them to beam small objects directly into enemy ship reactor cores?" Price stared at her control panel in disbelief. "Commander, medical transporters are designed to move people safely," Price replied. "They are not precise enough for targeting specific locations inside enemy ships. The power requirements alone would overload our damaged systems." But Sullivan's enhanced mind had already calculated the exact modifications needed to make it work. "Reroute power from the artificial gravity in sections 12 through 15, Sullivan instructed. "Then adjust the transporter targeting system to focus on metallic signatures instead of biological ones. We are going to beam improvised explosive devices directly into their reactor chambers." Price began making the modifications. While wondering how Sullivan could know such a technique was even possible, Dr. Brooks was treating wounded crew members when he heard Sullivan's latest plan. As a medical officer, Brooks knew the transporter systems better than most people on the ship. What Sullivan was describing should have been theoretically impossible with their equipment. Yet somehow Brooks believed that Sullivan's enhanced mind had found a solution that others would miss. "Commander, even if we can modify the transporters, how will we create explosive devices powerful enough to damage their reactors?" Brooks asked over the communication system. Sullivan's tactical genius was already solving that problem as well. His enhanced mind could see connections between different ship systems that normal thinking would never find. "Use the emergency oxygen tanks from the medical bays," Sullivan replied. "Connect them to the surgical laser power cells and set them to overload on impact. The oxygen will create a massive explosion when it contacts the reactor core's energy output." Dr. Brooks began gathering the materials. Even though the plan sounded completely insane, the hegemony ships were now trying to retreat to a defensive formation, but Sullivan had anticipated this move perfectly. He contacted the human reinforcements with new instructions that seemed to predict exactly what the enemy would do next. "Valiant, the flagship will try to escape by moving to starboard in 30 seconds, Sullivan said. "Be ready to intercept them at full speed." Captain Rodriguez looked at his tactical officer with amazement. "How could Sullivan know what they will do before they do it themselves?" he asked. But there was no time for questions because the hegemony flagship began moving exactly as Sullivan had predicted. Rodriguez ordered his ship to intercept and arrived at the perfect position to block their escape route. Sullivan's enhanced mind was processing information faster than the ship's computers. He could see every possible move the enemy might make and calculate the optimal human response for each scenario. The battle had become a deadly game where he was always several steps ahead of his opponents. Admiral Vexhai was beginning to realize he was facing something beyond normal tactical thinking. "All hegemony ships, concentrate fire on the hospital ship," Admiral Vexhai ordered. Whatever is coordinating their attacks must be eliminated immediately. But Sullivan had expected this decision and was already prepared with his countermove. The Nightingale's improvised transporter system came online at exactly the right moment. Amy, beam the first device directly into the second cruiser's reactor core, Sullivan commanded. Lieutenant Price activated the modified transporter and watched as her improvised explosive device disappeared from the medical bay. 5 seconds later, the hegemony cruiser erupted in a massive explosion that lit up space like a new star. The remaining hegemony ships stopped their attack and stared in shock at their destroyed companion. Admiral Vexhi's tactical officers reported that the explosion came from inside the cruiser's reactor chamber. Somehow the humans had transported an explosive device through their shields and armor directly into the most protected part of the ship. "This is impossible," Admiral Vexhi said. "No known technology can beam objects through our defensive systems." But Sullivan's enhanced mind was already preparing the next phase of his attack. The second explosive device was ready for transport, and his target was carefully selected for maximum psychological impact. Captain Martinez watched the battle unfold from the Nightingale's bridge with growing amazement. Her hospital ship had somehow become the tactical center of a space battle against superior enemy forces. Sullivan stood at the main display like a conductor directing a deadly orchestra. Every move he made seemed to anticipate what would happen next. "Commander, how are you able to predict their actions with such accuracy?" Martinez asked. Sullivan's enhanced brain was processing dozens of variables simultaneously, while coordinating 3 different ships in a complex tactical dance. His answer revealed the true extent of his transformation. "I can see the mathematical patterns that govern all tactical decisions," Sullivan replied. "Every captain makes choices based on training, experience, and immediate circumstances. My enhanced mind processes all those factors instantly and calculates the most likely outcomes for any given situation." He paused to send new coordinates to the Liberty before continuing. "Admiral Vexhi is trained in standard hegemony tactics which emphasize overwhelming force and intimidation," Sullivan explained. "But those tactics become predictable when you can process all the variables fast enough. He will try to retreat to long range and use his superior firepower. That is exactly where I want him to be." The USS Liberty moved into position as Sullivan had instructed and fired a precisely targeted salvo at the third hegemony ship. Captain Torres had followed Sullivan's instructions to target specific systems rather than trying to destroy the entire ship. The enemy vessel lost its main engines and began drifting helplessly in space. Sullivan activated the transporter again and beamed the second explosive device into Admiral Vexhi's flagship reactor core. The explosion was smaller this time because the flagship had better shielding, but it was enough to cripple their main weapon systems. The mighty hegemony battle fleet was now reduced to 1 operational ship, facing 3 coordinated human vessels. Dr. Brooks finished preparing the third explosive device and contacted Sullivan. "Commander, this is the last one we can make with our remaining supplies," Brooks reported. Sullivan's enhanced mind had already calculated that 1 more device would be enough to end the battle completely. "Beam it directly into the flagship's command center," Sullivan instructed. "Target the area just behind the main bridge where their tactical computers are located." Admiral Vexhi would never expect an attack on the ship's brain rather than its weapons or engines. The final explosion disabled the hegemony flagship's command and control systems. Admiral Vexhi found himself commanding a blind ship with no way to coordinate his remaining forces. His tactical officers reported that all their computer systems were offline and their communication equipment was destroyed. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed," Sullivan broadcast to the crippled hegemony fleet. "You attacked a protected medical vessel and violated every law of civilized warfare. Submit to capture and you will be treated according to galactic conventions." Admiral Vexhi looked around his damaged bridge and realized he had no choice left. The battle was over in a hospital. Ship had somehow defeated an entire enemy battle fleet. Commander Sullivan's transformation became clear as he took control of the bridge. His enhanced mind could see the entire battle like a 3-dimensional chess game playing out in space. Captain Martinez watched him work with growing amazement. This was not the same man who had been unconscious in the medical bay for weeks. Something fundamental had changed in his brain. "Amy, can you hear me in engineering?" Sullivan called over the communication system. Lieutenant Price's voice came back weak but determined. "I'm here, Commander. The engines are dead, but I still have some power in the secondary systems." Sullivan's tactical mind immediately began calculating what they could accomplish with limited resources and almost no time. "I need you to reroute power from the medical fabricators to the surgical laser arrays," Sullivan told her. "Then connect the electromagnetic field generators from the medical bays to our shield systems." "Can you do that?" Amy paused for a moment, trying to understand how those modifications could possibly help them fight warships. "Commander, those systems were not designed for combat," Amy replied. "The surgical lasers are meant for precise medical work, not weapons fire. The electromagnetic generators are only strong enough to contain medical equipment." But Sullivan's enhanced mind could already see exactly how to make it work. Dr. Kevin Brooks was listening to this conversation while treating wounded crew members. He pulled out his medical scanner and pointed it at Sullivan from across the bridge. The readings made him stop breathing for a moment. Sullivan's brain activity was unlike anything Brooks had ever seen in a human. New neural pathways were forming faster than should be possible. "Commander, your brain scans are showing impossible readings," Brooks said. "The trauma seems to have triggered some kind of enhancement in your neural processing. You are thinking at speeds that should not be humanly possible." Sullivan nodded but did not seem surprised by this information. "The injury changed something in my mind," Sullivan admitted. "I can see tactical patterns and solutions that were invisible to me before. Every enemy movement makes sense now. I can predict what they will do before they decide to do it themselves." He turned back to the tactical display where the hegemony ships were moving into their final attack positions. Ryan Davis was working to repair the communication systems when Sullivan gave him new orders. "Send a coded message to any human ships in the area," Sullivan said. "Make it look like random medical data, but embed tactical coordinates and weapon specifications in the signal. If there are any friendly ships nearby, they need to know exactly where to strike." Davis looked confused but began working on the message. "What coordinates should I send, Commander? We do not have any weapons to give specifications for." Sullivan's enhanced mind was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He could see connections and possibilities that seemed impossible to normal thinking. "Send the coordinates for the hegemony flagship's reactor core and shield generators," Sullivan replied. "Also include the optimal approach vectors for a surprise attack. Trust me on this." Davis shook his head but began encoding the information as Sullivan requested. "Lieutenant." Amy Price was deep in the engineering sections trying to make Sullivan's impossible modifications work. She connected power cables that were never meant to be joined together. The surgical lasers hummed to life with more energy than they had ever carried before. She rerouted the electromagnetic field generators and watched as the ship's failing shields began to strengthen. "This should not be possible," Amy muttered to herself, "but somehow it is working." She did not understand how Sullivan knew these modifications would be effective. The man had been unconscious for weeks and was not an engineer. Yet his instructions were creating defensive systems from medical equipment. Admiral Vexhai watched the hospital ship through his flagship's main viewer. The white vessel looked dead in space with its engines destroyed and hull breached in multiple places. His weapons officer reported that all systems were ready for the final attack. This would end the pathetic human resistance once and for all. "Fire all weapons," Admiral Vexhai ordered. "I want nothing left of that ship." But as his weapons charged up for the killing blow, something unexpected happened. The supposedly helpless hospital ship suddenly erupted with defensive fire. Precise laser beams struck his lead. Cruisers' shield generators with surgical accuracy. The hegemony crew watched in shock as their heavily armored warship took critical damage from what they thought was a defenseless medical vessel. Admiral Vexhai's multiple eyes widened with surprise and anger. "How is a hospital ship firing weapons at us?" he demanded. "This is impossible according to all intelligence reports." Sullivan stood on the Nightingale's bridge watching his plan unfold perfectly. His enhanced mind had calculated the exact moment when the enemy would be most vulnerable. The surgical lasers were not powerful enough to destroy warships, but they were precise enough to target specific systems and create maximum damage with minimum energy. "Now send the second signal," Sullivan told Davis. "Broadcast our new weapon specifications to make them think we have been hiding military warn systems all along." Davis sent the message while wondering how Sullivan could predict exactly what the enemy would do next. It was as if the commander could read their minds. Captain Martinez watched the battle develop with growing amazement. Her medical ship was actually fighting back against a superior enemy force and winning. "How did you know this would work?" she asked Sullivan. "These modifications should have been impossible with our equipment and time limitations." "I can see the tactical mathematics now," Sullivan replied. "Every weapon has optimal ranges and targeting solutions. Every ship has vulnerable points that can be exploited with the right approach. My enhanced mind processes all these variables simultaneously and finds the solutions that others miss." The first hegemony cruiser was now drifting with its main systems offline. Admiral Vexhai ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on the hospital ship, but Sullivan had already anticipated this move. "Amy, activate the electromagnetic pulse from Medical Base 7, he called out. "Target their sensor arrays at maximum range." Lieutenant Price triggered the pulse and watched as 3 hegemony ships suddenly went blind. Their targeting systems failed and their weapons fire scattered harmlessly into space. She was beginning to understand that Sullivan's tactical genius was operating on a level beyond normal human capability. Dr. Brooks continued monitoring Sullivan's brain activity while treating casualties from the battle. The readings showed that new neural connections were forming in real time. Sullivan's mind was literally evolving during the fight, becoming more capable with each passing minute. This was beyond medical science as they understood it. "Commander, whatever happened to your brain is continuing to develop," Brooks reported. "You are becoming something that has never existed before in human history." Sullivan nodded but remained focused on the tactical display, where more opportunities were becoming visible to his enhanced perception. Ryan Davis suddenly looked up from his communication station with excitement. "Commander, I am receiving responses to your coded messages. The destroyer USS Valiant and the cruiser USS Liberty are both in range and moving to assist us. They are requesting detailed tactical instructions." Sullivan's enhanced mind immediately calculated the optimal coordination patterns for a 3-ship assault against the remaining hegemony forces. He could see exactly where each friendly ship needed to be positioned and when they needed to fire for maximum effectiveness. The battle was about to become much more interesting. Admiral Vexhai realized he was facing something completely unexpected. This hospital ship was not just defending itself. It was actively coordinating a counterattack using tactics he had never encountered before. His tactical officers were struggling to predict what the humans would do next, because their movements seemed to defy conventional military logic. "All ships, retreat to defensive positions," Vexhai ordered. But Sullivan's enhanced mind had already seen this decision coming and prepared for it. The hegemony commander was about to learn that fighting a tactical genius was very different from bullying defenseless medical ships. The first blast hit the Nightingale like a hammer striking glass. Admiral Vexhai's flagship Dominator fired its main weapons directly at the hospital ship's engines. The massive white vessel shuddered and rolled as explosions tore through its hull. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the ship as power systems failed one by one. Captain Martinez grabbed onto her command chair as the bridge shook violently. Sparks flew from control panels and the main display flickered before going dark. "Damage report!" she shouted over the noise of alarms and braking equipment. Lieutenant Davis tried to contact different parts of the ship, but many communication lines were already cut. In the medical bays, Dr. Kevin Brooks watched in horror as his carefully organized hospital turned into chaos. The first explosion threw patients from their beds and sent medical equipment flying across the room. Alien doctors who had dedicated their lives to healing suddenly found themselves trapped in a war zone. Kevin grabbed a young nurse named Carol who had been knocked down by falling debris. "We need to evacuate the critical patients," Kevin told her. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters." But even as he said it, he knew there was nowhere safe to go. The ship was designed for healing, not fighting. The emergency shelters were meant to protect against accidents in space, not military weapons designed to kill. The second wave of attacks came 30 seconds later. This time, Admiral Vexhai targeted the medical bays directly. He wanted to make sure no one survived to tell others what happened here. The hegemony believed that fear was a weapon just as powerful as their guns. If they could make humans afraid to send hospital ships, it would be easier to win the war. Dr. Brooks felt the deck plates buckle under his feet as explosions ripped through the level below. The artificial gravity failed in several sections and wounded patients floated helplessly in the air. Medical staff tried to reach them, but more blasts shook the ship. Brooks saw an alien doctor from the Zentari species get crushed by a falling surgical unit. The doctor had been trying to save a human soldier's life when the attack began. In his medical bed, Commander Jake Sullivan's body was thrown against the restraints holding him down. The machines keeping him alive sparked and failed as power surged through damaged circuits. His eyes snapped open for the first time in weeks. But something was different about those eyes. They held an intensity that had not been there before his injury. Sullivan's enhanced mind immediately began processing everything around him. He could hear the sound of the explosions and feel the ship's movement through space. His brain started calculating trajectories, weapon patterns, and enemy positions automatically. The head trauma had not destroyed his tactical abilities. It had made them stronger than any human mind had ever been before. He disconnected the medical equipment and sat up slowly. His body was weak from weeks in bed, but his mind was clearer than ever. Sullivan could visualize the entire battle happening around the ship. He saw the hegemony formation, their attack patterns, and their obvious intentions. They meant to destroy everyone on board and leave no survivors. Captain Martinez was sending desperate messages to any ships that might be close enough to help. "This is the hospital ship Nightingale under attack by hegemony forces," she broadcast. "We have 3,000 medical personnel and patients on board. Please assist immediately." But the nearest human ships were hours away and the Nightingale would be destroyed in minutes. Lieutenant Amy Price was trapped in the engine room when the third attack hit. The hegemony weapons punched through the hull near her position, and atmosphere rushed out into space. Emergency doors sealed automatically, but she was cut off from the rest of the ship. Amy looked at her engine controls and realized something important. The ship's power systems were failing, but they were not completely dead yet. Commander Sullivan made his way through damaged corridors toward the bridge. His enhanced mind was already forming a plan that seemed impossible. He could see 17 different ways the battle might develop, and he knew exactly what needed to happen for any of them to work. The key was making the enemy believe something that was not true. Ryan Davis was trying to repair his communication systems when Sullivan walked onto the bridge. "Commander," Davis said with surprise, "you should be in medical care. The ship is under attack and we are taking heavy damage." But Sullivan ignored him and walked directly to Captain Martinez. "Captain, I need tactical command immediately," Sullivan said. His voice was calm despite the chaos around them. "I can see a way to survive this, but we need to act fast." Martinez looked at him with confusion. This man had been in a coma for weeks and now he wanted to fight hegemony warships with a hospital ship. "Sullivan, you are in no condition to command anything," Martinez replied. "We need to focus on saving as many people as possible before the ship is destroyed." But Sullivan's enhanced mind could already see what she could not. The hegemony ships were positioned exactly where he expected them to be. Their arrogance was making them predictable. Admiral Vexai prepared his ships for the final assault. The hospital ship was crippled and helpless. Its engines were destroyed and its shields were failing. Soon there would be nothing left but debris floating in space. He felt satisfied that this would send a message to all human ships about the price of opposing the hegemony. But something unexpected was happening inside the dying hospital ship. Sullivan's tactical genius was awakening fully for the first time. His brain could process battlefield information faster than the ship's computers. He could see patterns and connections that no normal human mind could understand. The injury that should have destroyed him had instead created something new. "Captain, the medical fabricators are still operational," Sullivan said. "We can modify them to create defensive systems. The surgical lasers can be repurposed as point defense weapons. The electromagnetic field generators from the medical bays can reinforce our failing shields." Martinez stared at him as if he had lost his mind. Dr. Brooks arrived on the bridge carrying medical reports about the casualties. He saw Sullivan standing there and could hardly believe it. "Commander, you should not be conscious," Brooks said. "Your brain scans showed massive trauma. How are you even walking?" But Sullivan was not listening to medical concerns. His enhanced mind was focused entirely on the tactical situation. The hegemony ships moved closer for the killing blow. Admiral Vexai wanted to see the hospital ship destroyed completely. He ordered his weapons officers to target the central medical bay, where most of the patients were located. This would be the final attack that ended the Nightingale forever. Sullivan looked at the tactical display and smiled for the first time since waking up. The enemy was doing exactly what his enhanced mind had predicted they would do. Their formation was perfect for what he had planned. Now he just needed to convince the crew of a hospital ship to become warriors. "Captain, trust me," Sullivan said. "I can save this ship and everyone on it. But we need to make them think we are more dangerous than we really are." The massive white ship moved slowly through space like a gentle giant among the stars. The UHMS Nightingale was bigger than most warships but carried no weapons at all. Red crosses painted on its hull glowed under the distant sun's light. Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge watching the endless darkness ahead. She had commanded this hospital ship for 3 years and never fired a single shot at anyone. Dr. Kevin Brooks walked through the medical bays checking on his patients. The ship carried over 3,000 people, but most of them were doctors and nurses. The rest were wounded soldiers from 7 different alien species. They all fought together against the hegemony, but now they needed help to heal. Kevin had saved hundreds of lives in these halls. He treated humans and aliens the same way because pain was pain no matter what species felt it. In the Special Care Unit, Commander Jake Sullivan lay unconscious in his medical bed. Machines kept him alive while his brain tried to heal from terrible damage. Jake had been one of the best tactical officers in the human fleet before the Battle of Proxima Station. A hegemony weapon had exploded near his command post and sent metal flying into his head. The doctors said he might never wake up again, but they kept trying to help him. The Nightingale was heading to Haven Port for supplies. Haven Port was a neutral station where ships from all species could stop safely. Even enemy ships were supposed to leave each other alone there. Captain Martinez had made this trip dozens of times before. The route took them through the Kepler sector where space battles happened often, but hospital ships were always left alone. Lieutenant Amy Price worked in the engine room keeping everything running smoothly. She was the best engineer on the ship and could fix almost anything. The Nightingale used old engines because it did not need to be fast. Hospital ships were protected by galactic law and no one was supposed to attack them. Amy often joked that her engines were so slow that even pirates would get bored waiting for them. On the communication deck, Ryan Davis monitored all the radio channels. He made sure everyone in space knew they were a medical ship. Every few minutes he broadcast their identification and medical status. The message was clear in 12 different languages, including all the hegemony tongues. No one could claim they did not know what the Nightingale was. The hegemony was a group of 4 alien species that wanted to control the galaxy. They had been at war with humans and their allies for 2 years. The hegemony believed that only the strongest species deserved to survive. They conquered planets and enslaved weaker races. Most of the galaxy had joined together to fight against them, but the war was not going well. Admiral Vexhai commanded a hegemony battle fleet in this sector. His species looked like giant insects with sharp claws and multiple eyes. Vexhai believed that showing mercy was a sign of weakness. He had destroyed civilian ships before and called it necessary for victory. His orders today were simple: eliminate the human hospital ship. The hegemony high command had decided that medical ships helped their enemies too much. If wounded soldiers could be healed and sent back to fight, then those ships were military targets. Admiral Vexhai agreed with this thinking. He did not care about galactic law or medical protection. War was war and enemies had to be destroyed completely. Captain Martinez was drinking coffee on the bridge when the alarm started ringing. Lieutenant Davis looked at his screens with wide eyes. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," he said. "They are not broadcasting identification signals." Lisa Martinez set down her coffee cup and walked to the main display. 6 large ships appeared on the screen, moving toward them. The computer identified them as hegemony warships. Her heart started beating faster, but she kept her voice calm. "Send them our medical identification immediately," she ordered. "Make sure they know we are a protected hospital ship." Ryan Davis sent the message on all frequencies. The response came back in the harsh hegemony language. The translation made everyone on the bridge freeze with fear. "Surrender and prepare to be destroyed. No quarter will be given to enemies of the hegemony." "This has to be a mistake," Martinez said. "Send the message again. Tell them we have wounded from their own battles on board. We are treating soldiers from both sides." But the hegemony ships kept coming closer. Their weapon systems began powering up. Energy readings showed they were preparing to fire. Captain Martinez had commanded many different ships but never faced anything like this. No one attacked hospital ships. It was the most basic rule of civilized warfare. Down in the medical bays, Dr. Kevin Brooks felt the ship's engines change speed. The Nightingale was trying to run, but it was far too slow. He looked at all the patients depending on him for their lives. Alien doctors worked beside human nurses, taking care of everyone without thinking about species or politics. This was supposed to be a place of healing, not war. Commander Jake Sullivan's machine started beeping faster, as if his unconscious mind could sense the danger. His brain activity increased for the first time in weeks. Deep inside his damaged mind, something was starting to change. The experimental drugs keeping him alive mixed with his natural brain chemistry in ways no one expected. Admiral Vexhai watched the hospital ship trying to escape and felt satisfied. The humans thought their mercy made them strong, but it only made them weak. Today he would show the galaxy what happened to those who opposed the hegemony. His weapons officer reported that all systems were ready to fire. "Target their engines first," Vexhai ordered. "Let them suffer before they die. Send a message to all human ships that this is what mercy gets them." The Nightingale's shields were designed to protect against accidents, not military weapons. Captain Martinez knew they could not survive even one attack from those warships. She thought about the 3,000 innocent people depending on her. Medical staff, wounded soldiers, and patients from 7 different species who had done nothing wrong except need help to heal. "All hands, prepare for impact," she announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. Find cover and protect the patients." The hegemony fleet moved into attack formation. In moments, they would open fire on the most defenseless ship in space. The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy that would change the course of the war forever. Admiral Vexhai sat in a detention cell aboard the USS Liberty, still struggling to understand how his superior fleet had been defeated by a crippled hospital ship. The tactical genius he had faced was unlike anything in hegemony military records. Word of the impossible victory spread through hyperspace communications faster than the ships themselves. Commander Sullivan stood on the Nightingale's bridge 3 days later, watching repair crews work to fix the damage from the battle. His enhanced mind continued to process tactical information at superhuman speeds, but now he also understood the broader implications of what had happened. Dr. Brooks approached him with the latest brain scans and medical reports. "The neural enhancements appear to be permanent," Brooks told Sullivan. "Your brain is forming new connections faster than we can measure them. You are processing information at rates that should be impossible for human biology." Sullivan nodded as he watched Alliance ships arriving to escort the captured hegemony vessels back to prison facilities. Captain Martinez had spent the last 3 days writing reports about the battle for Alliance Command. Every military analyst who read her account demanded more details about Sullivan's tactical methods. The Nightingale Gambit, as historians would later name it, became required study at every military academy in human space within weeks of the battle. "Commander, Alliance Command wants to promote you to Admiral and give you command of the entire sector fleet," Martinez told Sullivan. "They also want you to establish a new tactical training program using your enhanced methods." Sullivan considered the offer, while his enhanced mind automatically analyzed the defensive positions of nearby ships. Lieutenant Amy Price had become famous throughout the Alliance Engineering Corps for her weapon modifications during the battle. Military engineers from 12 different species requested detailed plans for converting medical equipment into defensive systems. Amy found herself promoted to chief engineer and assigned to work with Sullivan on developing new tactical technologies. "I still do not understand how you knew those modifications would work," Price told Sullivan. "The mathematical calculations alone should have taken hours, but you solved them in seconds during the middle of battle." Sullivan's enhanced brain could now see the underlying patterns that connected all technology and tactics. Ryan Davis received commendation for his communication work during the battle. His coded messages had coordinated 3 ships with precision that military experts called impossible. Davis was promoted to Chief Communications Officer and became Sullivan's primary liaison with Alliance Command for tactical coordination. The crew of the Nightingale found themselves heroes throughout Alliance space, but they also became symbols of something larger. The attack on their hospital ship had proven that the hegemony would target anyone who opposed them, including medical personnel and wounded soldiers. This brutality united the galaxy's civilized species against the hegemony more effectively than any diplomatic effort. Dr. Brooks continued studying Sullivan's condition. While treating the last patients from the battle, the commander's brain scans showed continued development of new neural pathways that seemed to enhance his tactical abilities even further. Brooks realized he was witnessing the evolution of human consciousness in real time. "You have become something that has never existed before," Brooks told Sullivan during a medical examination. "Your tactical processing capabilities exceed our most advanced computers, but you still maintain human intuition and creativity. This combination may be the key to ending the war." Sullivan appreciated the doctor's analysis while his enhanced mind considered new strategic possibilities. Alliance Command established the Sullivan Institute for advanced tactical studies on the space station Haven Port, the same neutral location the Nightingale had been trying to reach when the battle began. Officers from dozens of species came to study Sullivan's methods and learn his enhanced tactical thinking. The Institute became the most respected military academy in the galaxy. Captain Ben Rodriguez of the USS Valiant wrote detailed reports about coordinating with Sullivan during the battle. "Following his tactical instructions was like having the entire battle mapped out in advance," Rodriguez reported. "Sullivan could see outcomes that we could not imagine and guide us to victory with minimal casualties." Rodriguez became one of Sullivan's most trusted fleet commanders. Captain Michelle Torres of the USS Liberty had similar experiences working with Sullivan's tactical genius. "His battle plan seemed impossible until we executed them," Torres wrote in her reports. "Every enemy move was predicted and countered before they could complete their actions." Torres received promotion to admiral in command of the sector's cruiser squadrons. The Hegemony Military Command studied recordings of the battle for months, trying to understand how their superior fleet had been defeated. Their tactical computers could not replicate Sullivan's decision-making process or predict his strategic choices. Fear of facing Sullivan's tactical genius began affecting Hegemony fleet movements throughout the war zone. Sullivan accepted promotion to admiral and took command of the Alliance fleet responsible for protecting medical ships and civilian convoys. His enhanced mind could coordinate dozens of ships simultaneously, while maintaining perfect tactical awareness of enemy movements across multiple star systems. Under his leadership, no Alliance medical ship was ever attacked successfully again. The Nightingale itself became a symbol of resilience and human determination. The ship was repaired and returned to medical service, but now it carried a small defensive fleet wherever it went. Captain Martinez continued commanding the vessel while working closely with Sullivan on protecting other medical ships from Hegemony attacks. Alliance medical services expanded rapidly as more species joined the fight against the Hegemony. Sullivan's protection of hospital ships allowed wounded soldiers from dozens of worlds to receive treatment and return to combat. The very mercy that the Hegemony had tried to eliminate became a source of strength for the Alliance forces. The war began turning in favor of the Alliance as other human commanders adopted Sullivan's tactical methods. While none of them possessed his enhanced mental capabilities, they could apply his strategic principles to achieve victories that seemed impossible under conventional military thinking. Human tactical doctrine evolved rapidly under Sullivan's influence. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the USS Guardian, looking out at a fleet that included ships from 15 different species. All of them were united by the lesson learned from the attack on the Nightingale. Those who targeted the innocent and defenseless would face the full wrath of civilized species working together. Dr. Brooks visited Sullivan regularly to monitor his continued neural development. "Your brain continues to evolve," Brooks reported during one examination. "You are developing capabilities that may represent the next stage of human evolution." Sullivan accepted this responsibility while using his abilities to protect those who could not protect themselves. The attack on a hospital ship had indeed awakened a tactical genius, but more importantly, it had awakened humanity's determination to defend the principles of mercy and healing. In a galaxy threatened by those who saw compassion as weakness, Sullivan's enhanced mind became the sword that protected the Alliance's commitment to saving lives rather than taking them. Years later, when historians wrote about the turning point in the war against the Hegemony, they would always begin with the story of the hospital ship that fought back. The Nightingale and her crew proved that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their refusal to abandon their principles even when facing impossible odds. Admiral Sullivan's tactical genius continued protecting medical ships and civilian populations throughout the galaxy. His enhanced mind had become humanity's gift to all species that valued life over conquest. The attack that was meant to break human resolve had instead forged a legend that would inspire generations of those who chose to heal, rather than harm. The legend of the Nightingale spread to every world in the galaxy, carrying a simple message that resonated across all species and cultures. Those who mistake mercy for weakness do so at their own peril, because sometimes the greatest tactical genius can be found not in a warrior's heart, but in a healer's determination to protect the innocent.